Hello friends, this is Mark from the Human-Cetacean Alliance, and I'm still talking to you from the coast of beautiful Algarve in the south of Portugal. Now, for those of you who might be unfamiliar with the meaning of the word cetacean, cetaceans are essentially the whale and dolphin species. And they are really extraordinary beings. And I work a lot in my coaching practice, my healing activity, my teaching activity, and my function as a retreat facilitator. I work a lot with their energies and with their spirits as allies. And for that reason, I guess you might call my general approach of life and the way I manage my activity shamanic in the broader sense of that word. But today, what I want to talk to you about is nostalgia. Something I sometimes encounter in my coaching sessions, and that I help my clients to deal with, of course. Nostalgie quand tu nous tiens. It's a French expression that was very common when I was still a younger lad, and it means nostalgia when you hold us, when you have a hold on us, when you have a grip on us, so to speak. Very interesting expression. Of course, the word hold can have several meanings. There are different ways to hold someone. And I'm just going to say it. In my opinion, nostalgia tends to hold us hostage, to hold us back, to hold us prisoner to a past version of ourselves, a past expression of ourselves. The other day I was getting a haircut. It happens to the best of us, and the hairdresser at some point in the conversation asked me a question. Do you remember how things were 20, 30 years ago? Don't you miss the 90s? Things were just perfect, weren't they? I refrained from answering that question bluntly by saying that no, I didn't think so. But I found it very revealing. I found it very revealing of an attitude that is a perception that is extremely common and widespread, and that you can find both at a collective level and at an individual level. I see many signs of it. I see many signs of it. For instance, in fiction. Fiction reveals a lot, about the way society perceives itself. There is a lot at the moment. Do you see all the remakes and the reboots and the prequels and the sequels and the prequels to sequels and sequels to prequels that are on our screens at the moment? Can't people come up with new stories, with new characters? That is very telling. That is very telling, and to me there is a connection here between nostalgia and a block to creativity. And it goes both ways. because when your creativity is blocked, when you have trouble coming up with new, fresh expressions, you tend to, or at least you can be tempted to take refuge in an idealized past, in a romanticized version of the past, and hold on to it to dear life, to a moment in time in life where things were fresher, when there was movement, when there was novelty. And conversely, when you hold on to an idealized version of your past that you feel very emotionally attached to, it can also stand in the way of your creative expression in the present, of the version of you that wants to emerge, that wants to be birthed. So you also have, you also see stories taking place, for instance, in the 80s, that are getting very popular. Stranger Things is one example of that. Even though I have to say there was a lot of interesting soft disclosure in the 2 first seasons of that series. Cobra Kai, even though it takes place in the present time, there is so much reference to the original Karate Kid movies that it definitely plays on that 80s nostalgia. Some critics call that nostalgia bait. It works very well. It works very well. And still at the collective level, looking at a social and cultural context that I'm familiar with, which is the French one. I'm from Belgium, I'm French speaking. Many people in France from certain generations feel nostalgic about the time of Charles de Gaulle when he was president, General de Gaulle, because it was sort of a peak period for France. There were years where France was the second economic power in the world, and there was a lot of technological innovation going on, and the prestige of France, especially the cultural prestige of France, was very, very strong. The image of France. So you have a rather considerable segment of the population who's nostalgic about that period, and more generally about the period that they call les 30 glorieuses, the 30 glorious years of Western economic growth between the end of World War II and the first, how do you call that in English, I'm not sure, the first oil shock. That's how we say it in French, the oil shock in the 70s. Now at an individual level, of course this is something that is very common too, and usually what people are nostalgic about is a period of their youth where they had definitely less worries in life, and there seemed to be more potential. There seemed to be more possibilities. The future seemed to hold more possibilities. And for those of you who live in the United States, it's often going to be nostalgia about the high school years. You know, for the boys it's when they were a jock, for the girls where they were a cheerleader and they were the king and queen of the high school. And if you're not American, I'm sure you have seen that in series and movies. They were popular, you know. And definitely had less responsibilities. There is a really big problem. I see a really big problem with nostalgia, which is precisely that it stands in the way. And it is based on a flaw in perception, a distortion of perception. Because first, this way of looking at our past with rosy glasses usually tends to ignore a lot of things. So we put the emphasis on the pleasant aspects of these periods, and there is a sort of selective amnesia that we tend to put the less pleasant aspects under the memory rug. And the other flaw in perception is that even when things on the surface go pretty well and seem fine and dandy during these periods, whether they are historical or personal, there's a lot of other stuff happening under the surface. There is dirty, nasty stuff going on under the surface. Or there was. In society, a lot of dirty stuff happening behind closed doors, basements and underground tunnels, and elite castles. Some of you understand very well what I'm talking about. And at an individual level too, of course, the dirty family secrets, the clandestine affairs, and all the things that get stuffed into the subconscious that people aren't even aware of, and very often are even scared to look at, because there can be some pretty scary stuff in there. But ultimately, all these, all that undesired, unpleasant stuff, it needs to come to the surface. It has to come to the surface so that we can become aware of it and somehow reconcile with it, accept it, and alchemize it. It is an absolute necessity. And it can feel very overwhelming, not only because of the intensity of the emotions that can be associated with that, these past experiences, these unresolved past experiences, and also because of the sheer amount of it. And I don't want to sound discouraging when I say that, because we can do it. You know, we have the absolute capacity to do this. The sheer amount of it, because it's not just from this lifetime. It can be from a lot of lifetimes, because we have started our journey in this universe very long time ago, and from the myriad of experiences and lifetimes that we have accumulated during that universal journey, everything that was left unresolved will at some point that was left unresolved in any of these life experiences, of which there is an absolutely staggering number of. So all of that will at some point pop up in one way or another during the lifetimes we spend here in this sub-reality, this third-dimensional sub-reality of planet Earth, because it is the function of this place. And it is the ultimate alchemical crucible of the universe. This is where things, unresolved things, and the most intense aspects of duality get processed. So that is the incredible quality and value of this reality that we live in. And many people don't want to see that or cannot see that. They get very resentful about the way this reality is structured and the experiences we go through here. And again, I can understand. It's intense. It's not easy. This morning, for instance, I was hearing Candace Owens say in a video that this planet is ghetto. And these are her own words. This planet is ghetto. And that she could always perceive that. It's a sad thing to say, because it stems from a flow in perception in that case too, a big flow in perception, an inability to perceive the real nature of this incredible planetary being that we live on, and of the species that we are. We give ourselves a very bad rap, which again is understandable, but very unjustified. We really need to become more aware of our dignity in a cosmic context, of the difficulty of what we are achieving here that is incredibly challenging, and of the sheer amount of power that is required to do what we do, even though we we seem to be these insignificant, powerless little things. We are anything but that. We are anything but. So because it is so extraordinarily challenging, it can rightfully be said that being human here on Earth, being human is an act of heroism. And that quote is not from me. It's from George Kavasilas, a man whom I consider to be one of the great luminaries of our time, even though his audience is not that huge. You know, it's a few, maybe a few dozens of thousands of people. Who knows, maybe a few hundreds, but a few dozen thousands that I'm sure of, that have heard him. I know for a fact that he's going to become much more famous than that and get much more acknowledgement. But that quote is from him, and I totally embrace it. So, where was I going with all this? Oh yeah, yeah. So it is in fact the very function of planet Earth, and especially its third-dimensional subrealm. It is the very function of planet Earth. It is actually the function of the entire galaxy and the solar system that Earth is in. But it is here that the process is at its most intense. And we do this not only, well, first we do it for ourselves, and it is an absolute necessity. It is an absolute necessity if we want, if we wish. Excuse me, I need to maneuver this a little bit. I'm trying to show you the best side of the landscape. Yeah, this is good. So, if we wish to complete our journey in this universe, and at some point we have to, we cannot stay here forever. Well, completing your journey in this universe, it's going to happen at some point, sooner or later. And once it is done, when we have learned all of the lessons and gone through all of the experiences that this universe has to offer, we can either choose to stay here in a really elevated, lofty status, or we can choose to exit it altogether. Because there is no limit to the omniverse beyond this universe. But I'm not going there now. I mean, I don't mean that I'm not going in the omniverse, but I'm not going to discuss this in this video. So, in order to do that, we need to process all of our unresolved stuff. And this place is the best one. It's unparalleled in its ability to provide us with the required environment, ecosystem conditions to do just that. So please don't be resentful. Please don't be resentful about your life here, about your circumstances here, especially not about your mother planet. Please, please, please. Don't be resentful towards her. Because the sacrifice that she's making, nobody has any idea of the magnitude of it. Nobody has, really. So we need to go through all of this, so we might as well do it with goodwill as much as possible, and to embrace the process, and not try to take refuge in a romanticized, idealized version of our past, because that's only going to get in the way. And we also need to do this at a collective level as a species. And as a species, the amount of cosmic karma that we are transmuting on behalf of the universe is beyond belief. It is such a huge, huge service that we are rendering the cosmos. So let's try to let go of any idea that we are small, insignificant beings, and that we are unworthy, and that we are so crappy, because yeah, we are dealing with the garbage of the universe here and taking care of it. So yeah, you are heroes. You are a hero to be here and do what you do. You are a hero. You are a wise elder of the universe. Who do you think they're going to send here? Who do you think is going to volunteer to come here and go through such challenging circumstances, such a challenging environment? My goodness. Now, still speaking in that kind of context, nostalgia can appear in the most unexpected, surprising places. And one example I'm thinking of is DNA. So you might have heard, if you are spiritually inclined, that we used to have, as a species, we used to have 12-strand DNA. And that now, due to everything we've gone through, we are down to just 2 strands of DNA. And I believe that is the case. I believe that's accurate. Some people say it was actually much more than 12, but let's not go there right now. It is being said that we are currently in the process of reactivating our dormant strands of DNA, and that we are going back, we are going to towards the restoration of our 12-strand DNA, which is going to give us access to a much more expanded state of consciousness and reactivate our latent multidimensional abilities. Sounds good, right? Sounds great. And I used to believe that to be the case, and now my perspective has changed quite a bit regarding that. That is again something that I owe to my dear friend George Cavasilas, because well, it's a form of nostalgia, and we are not meant to go back there. So that statement might sound controversial, I understand that, but when I first heard George explain what I'm about to explain, it rang true to me. I felt a great resonance with that insight at a deep level. So I'm sharing it with you now too. His perspective is that we had indeed that 12-strand DNA, and each strand was representing a species, a prominent species, a very significant species in our Milky Way galaxy. And as we went through cycles of evolution, in every cycle we were putting the emphasis on 2 strands, because we're dealing with duality here. So we were processing the specific qualities and challenges of 2 species and the way they can be complementary and opposite to one another. That's how you resolve duality, or the most intense aspect of duality at least. And what George believes and states is that every time we completed one of these evolutionary cycles, these 2 strands were sort of folded, you might say, because they had served their purpose. And now we are down to 2, so we are down to 2 strands and 2 galactic species. And what we are meant to do is not to reactivate the other 10 strands, but to merge the 2 remaining strands into one. Full integration of polar opposites. into a unity, transcending duality, or resolving duality. And once that is done, once the two are merged, then we can transcend DNA altogether. And again, that's the rather bold statement that might also sound controversial. I don't believe that DNA is the end-all be-all of our genetics, of our genome. I believe that mitochondria is actually a much more integral part of our natural genome. But again, that's not really a subject for this video. I just wanted to mention it because to me it really illustrates in the woo-woo sphere, if you want, a really striking example of how nostalgia can trap us and induce attitudes and beliefs that are not really conducive to our best interest, because if we use our creative powers, our creative abilities, the power of our intention to reactivate and reawaken the 12-strand DNA, that's going to pull us back into the past, into a past expression, a past version of ourselves, which is going to stand in the way of our evolution, and ultimately it can recycle us back into the carousel, the merry-go-round of the matrix of synthetic light. There, I said it. It's not going to happen to us as a species, but it could happen to us as individuals. And that's definitely not something I want for myself. So, my conclusion to this exploration would be wary of nostalgia, because it's not as harmless as it might seem. It can be a serious issue. It can be really stand in your way. It can really hold you back. And I don't mean that you need to be extreme about it. I don't mean that you need to be a very stern taskmaster. That you cannot, for instance, under any circumstance, watch an 80s movie or an 80s series and feel a bit warm and fuzzy about it. You know, if you want to indulge in that, just do it. Just do it for a moment and enjoy it, and then let it go. Let it go. Use it as entertainment. Don't make a big deal of it, and just don't get attached. Just don't get emotionally attached and over-focused on that. So this was my exploration on the theme of nostalgia, and yeah, I'm sure that I'll come back to this subject in the future and share more insights about it. In the meantime, I wish you all the best. I'll see you in another video if you want, and in the meantime, take care.